Hello and welcome back. You know what? There's one thing that Prince, Dennis Hopper, Marlon Brando, Supreme Court Justice Warren Burger, and many others have in common. They didn't have a will or a trust. And you know what? 55% of Americans, when they pass away, don't have a will or trust. And this creates big problems with probate. And what a lot of people don't realize about probate, it's a lawsuit against yourself, funded by yourself, and you lose. This is the reason why we have Brenda Geiger here. She's an esteemed trust and estate lawyer in the Carlsbad area. Now, I just want to show you just a few of the books that she's written: Secrets of Great Estate Planning, Secrets of Estate Planning for the Affluent, Protecting an Aging Partner, Protecting Your Children from IRA Inheritance, Protecting You and Your Business. She's a wonderful attorney. She's done many things. Brenda, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited for you as well, because this incident with Prince is very timely. And a lot of people don't realize that, you know what, you don't have to have $400 or $500 million in assets, or, you know what, a couple $100,000 in assets could create some significant problems in somebody's life. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. It's really shocking that Prince doesn't have an estate plan set up, especially given the fact that his estate's worth $300 to $500 million.
Wow, that's crazy. Now, why do you think people don't set up an estate plan?
I think some people honestly are just in denial that it's going to happen someday. But I think they should be focused on more than just what happens when I die. What happens if I don't die? So having the right players set up so that somebody can take over and manage your estate and manage your affairs and your health care in the event that you have an incapacitating event, even just an accident, or if you had a heart attack, or any number of other things that could happen to you that now you can't be in control of everything.
Now, you know what? At one time, a long time ago, I talked to another financial advisor, and he wasn't too happy with me. And the reason why he wasn't too happy is because his parents wanted to move the money away from him over to my firm. And he, we were helping his parents get a trust. Mm-hmm. And he says, oh, probate's nonsense. Now, what I'd like to know from you is, if somebody's got $400,000 or $500,000 in assets, what's the probate process like?
Well, even a simple probate in California, and I can speak more specifically to San Diego County, but we used to have 2 courthouses in San Diego County. Now we only have 1. So we have basically 2 judges downtown San Diego. And we're really backed up, and that's due to budget cuts in California. But in some states, it's not such a big deal if it's a more modest estate to go through the probate process, because their fees aren't terrific like they are here in California. But it's not uncommon for a probate estate here in California to run 5 to 8% of the value of the estate, and that doesn't include any debt. So whatever the value, so let's say you have a house that's worth $900,000 and you have a mortgage against it that's $500,000. It's not the $400,000 that the probate fee is calculated on for the executor and for the attorney, but it's the full $900,000.
So somebody could have $500,000 in assets, $1 million home, and end up paying $150,000 just to go through a probate.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to run the calculations, but yeah, it's not an insignificant amount. And then there are filing fees and probate referee fees, and not to mention the time delay that is typically about 16 to 24 months in Southern California to get everything pushed through.
Now, one of the things that I've seen, and people have had some problems, especially when they have kids, and the kids are under the age of 18, husband passes away, the wife's there, they don't have a trust. How does that adversely affect the kids and the family, the whole dynamic there?
Well, I'll tell you a case that I dealt with a few years ago that went through probate. The husband had the house in his name only and a pretty large brokerage account in his name. His wife had less than perfect credit, so when they refinanced the house, it went into his name, and he had just never bothered to put her onto the brokerage account.
Oh. 2
minor children. And what happened was that we had to get representation for the 4 and 7-year-old because they had an economic interest in his estate, and they were going to get a big chunk of the estate, and she was going to get some. And she claimed that there was a will, but she couldn't locate it. Now, they didn't have a trust is what they should have had. So in the end, it took about almost 3 years to go through that process because of all the complications in that estate. But eventually we came to a settlement where she got the house and the kids got mainly the brokerage account. So now those kids have full access to it at age 18. Now, for her estate that she had outside of her husband or that they had community interests in, we were able to set up a trust and protect that for her children and not let her children be trustees until a much later age. And we were actually able to wrap some asset protection around those continuing trusts for those boys.
That's a mess.
Yeah.
Now, what about when it comes to healthcare documents? You know, I see people, they have a heart attack or a stroke, they get rushed to the hospital and they don't have that power of attorney or that healthcare agent. Why is that so important? How can it affect them?
Well, under the HIPAA laws, they're technically not supposed to give any information, not about your status or even the fact that you're there, to anybody without HIPAA authorization. So if you are incapacitated, meaning you can't speak and you can't sign a document giving that authority and that right, then the people that are looking for you may not be able to find you or to obtain information about your conditions. So that's what we call the HIPAA. That's federal law. And then we have a state thing called an Advanced Healthcare Directive. So in our statute, we have all these rules for how people can make decisions for you in the event that you're not able to. So the statute gives us some leeway to customize it, but we have some basic provisions about end-of-life decisions, the choice to prolong life, the choice not to prolong life. And if you remember Terri Schiavo down in Florida, the big battle between her parents and between her husband for 10 years before she died, you know, just an astronomical
That was a mess.
amount of money spent on that court case. And, you know, she may not have wanted to live in that state, but no one will ever know because she didn't do that document.
Now, one of the things that just to go back to the Advanced Healthcare Directive and the healthcare agent, basically it enables somebody that you choose to make decisions on your behalf, which means they can fight with the doctors, they can fight with the insurance company, they can move them from a bad hospital to a good hospital. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And that document can be made effective immediately. Most people don't do it that way, but sometimes when we have an older client that maybe their health is starting to fail or they're starting to have memory issues, we may want them to make it effective immediately so that we don't have to go out and get doctors' incapacity declaration.
Now, the durable power of attorney over financial, that's over your finances and stuff like that. Now, why is it so important to have that document if you have health issues?
Well, you're going to need somebody to take care of your finances that are outside the trust, maybe file tax returns, if they need to deal with a nursing home on the financial side. There's all kinds of different reasons, but if you're not, you know, towards the end of your life, it's an important document to have also for planning purposes. Let's say you didn't move an important asset to your trust, you no longer have capacity to do so. In the power of attorney, we can give somebody the power to fund your trust with your assets or to execute a disclaimer on your behalf if you don't have capacity. I actually had that happen in a case. It was a larger estate, the exemption was smaller at that time, and we needed to utilize both husband and wife's exemption, and wife died suddenly and unexpectedly, and dad had had a stroke, so he didn't have capacity. So we were able to execute a disclaimer through the power of attorney agent in order to utilize both of their estate planning exemptions. So we saved the estate hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That's great. Now, you're the founder of the Trust and Estate Planning Symposium. You have the event coming up in June. Could you tell us about it? We've got about a minute to go.
Well, we have every year, we have an annual event, and it's for professionals, but many clients attend this as well. And we have 4 speakers. 3 of them are attorneys. 1 is a business broker that sells businesses. So it's educational. This year we're talking about IRA trusts, or retirement plan trusts as they're more commonly known. We also have a speaker talking about an irrevocable trust strategy to save an estate, you know, millions of dollars in the event that they need to save on estate taxes. And we have someone that's going to be talking about trust protectors, which are a way to help in irrevocable trust documents as well as revocable to plan for things that are unaccounted for. So we got some really, really awesome topics this year. I'm so excited about it.
Brenda, thanks for coming on to the show. If you'd like to go to her event, you're going to see that information on the screen. You'll be able to see it at our website at sextonadvisorgroup.com. If you'd like to get more information on Brenda, you can go to our website as well. There's going to be a link to her website. Again, thanks for coming on to the show.
Thank you so much.
Stick with
Steve.
us. We'll be right back.